That's how. Yeah. Hey, Chef.
There's everybody.
All right.
All right, let me put this down here. Okay. What do y'all want to know?
Did you say, what do we want to know?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
So I would like to know, oh, go ahead. Sam.
yeah, about the math. Go ahead.
The mask?
Yeah. She wants to know about the math sheet, so you can answer that and then I'll ask my question.
A couple of you have asked this this week about kind of taking this larger scaled number to something that may make a little more sense. Okay, I've broken this down. First of all, I want to apologize to everybody. So I think it was Jill that caught this, and you saved your week 6 math while it says week 8. You saved it as like actually week 6 or something like that. Whenever an instructor builds a class, usually if he or she's pretty happy with the class, they just copy the shell from the previous semester over to the next semester, and you don't have to recreate the wheel. Well, I took a 16-week class and scaled it down to a 10-week class, and it's obvious that's not the only one that, you know, I missed some of the little headings. That's instructor error. We're all perfect, almost perfect, but not completely entirely perfect. So anyway, there's that. The main objectives, let me put it to you this way regarding our kitchen math. The main objective of the culinary math in this class is focusing on scaling the recipe. Now, before I get into any of the nuts and bolts of that, one of the significant things we need to understand, and for, you know, 1 or 2 of you, maybe all 3 of you, this will click right away. Maybe it won't click until you're working in the business, but profitability for us, our ability to keep the lights on and keep working from this week to the next week and so on, is down to pennies. According to the National Restaurant Association, the national average from quick service restaurants to fine dining, everywhere in between, including catering, the average profitability, the average amount of money you get to take home as the owner, or you get to put into the coffers, the savings of that restaurant, is 4 to 6%. For every dollar you take in, you keep about a nickel. So our margins are very, very, very tight. Okay. You're going to do more of this same recipe scaling in food too, and we'll get a little more specific. But right now, the habit I'm wanting to develop, the reason I don't want you to scale yet, the reason I don't want you to scale the 1,287 teaspoons of something is because I want you to get used to seeing 1,287 teaspoons. I want you to get used to using the exact recipe conversion factor, right? What's the recipe conversion factor, my people?
Divide the original yield by the new yield.
Correct.
Yield by, yeah.
And if that gives you a number that is 4.875, that's your recipe conversion factor.
Mhm.
You need to use 4.875 and not scale that to 4.9 or 5.
Okay.
Let me tell you why. And when you understand why, if this clicks, then we've jumped over the main hurdle for kitchen math and food production 1. Here's the thing we have to understand. Cooking at home, you all right now, for the most part, and I don't mean to insult anybody's intelligence that has been doing catering or has worked a week or 2 or 5 weeks or whatever in a restaurant. For the most part, we are accustomed to opening up the Better Homes and Garden, the Betty Crocker cookbook, and we're going to see a recipe that's written for 4 to 6 servings, and that looks yummy. And I'm just going to follow that recipe. And if I'm cooking for me and my wife, she likes leftovers. So I'm gonna cook the recipe, and I'm gonna have leftovers for her lunch or her dinner the next day while I'm at work. And I hate leftovers, so it'll be a day or 2, and I cook something else new and fresh. When we Google recipes, when we go to epicurious.com, when we go to all recipes, when we go to foodnetwork.com, all of those recipes are written for generally 4 to 12 servings, somewhere in that ballpark.
Mhm.
If you're fortunate to work in one of those recipe vendors where you can punch in a number, I want to scale this to 250 or whatever, that's okay. But sometimes behind the scenes, the math that's used in that program already scales that recipe conversion factor. Instead of using 4.875, it uses 4.9 or it uses 5 and spits out a number that's nice and round and clean. And you get to use nice, round, clean numbers. Okay. Let me go back to this principle. 5 cents on the dollar is all we get to put in the bank. And if you own the operation, you pay yourself out of that 5 cents, leaving even less money in the coffers of the restaurant. Every little penny matters. Can you get 1 or 2 more servings out of that head of romaine lettuce when you're making your Caesar salads for service tonight? Can you take a rubber spatula and scrape out the insides of that gallon of mayonnaise that you're using to make the bulk tuna salad and not throw out 3 or 4 servings of a sandwich just in the mayonnaise that you would otherwise leave in the container? Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Apply that thought to our recipe scaling and doing this math. We can't afford, I can't afford to teach you lazy shorthand that will end up costing you money and potentially costing you your business in the long run. While it is easy, one of the recipes in this week or last week's math, weren't there 3 recipes to scale?
Mhm.
I think the middle one was 4.875. Am I right? Something like that?
Yeah, the first one was 4.875.
Was the recipe conversion factor, right?
Sir?
That was the recipe conversion factor.
Right.
If you change the recipe conversion factor to 5, on the surface, it looks like, oh, well, I'm only adding 1 egg. I'm only adding a cup and a half of flour. I don't remember the recipe, so I'm just,
Okay.
stuff off the top of my head. Now, you are only adding 1 egg. But if this is your habit, if this is your practice for every single recipe, in a restaurant that serves 25 items, 25 different dishes on the dinner service menu, to serve those 25 different plates, you could have 500 different recipes that are being executed all throughout the kitchen in that one day's service, in that one night of dinner service. Are you following me?
Yeah.
Now start to add up those pennies. If this recipe, well, it's just one extra egg, or we need to scale this recipe that's written for 14 people, 14 servings, but we have a catering event coming in on site and we're going to feed 1,252 people. Do we just say, well, 1,300, 1,400, that's pretty close, and we're going to make a little bit of extra, and there's going to be plenty for the kitchen staff to take home and the servers to have leftovers, and I'll call grandma and I'll bring dinner on my way home? Can you see how costly that can be? And so for right now, I actually do think it's this week or next week. I will have you only once or twice in the semester. I'll have you work on taking that recipe that was scaled to 16 tablespoons. And I'll want to see you starting to think about, it is easier for my kitchen to produce 1 cup than it is for them to produce 16 tablespoons. Eventually we'll get there. That's the last step.
Okay.
The whole recipe conversion process. But for now, I want to see 16 tablespoons, unless it might be this week. It's this week or next week. The directions will say, and goofy little animation, the goofy little kitchen math animation instruction thing on that week, which might be this one. I add that step, and it's going to be whatever you think. If you see 16 tablespoons, and 16 tablespoons to you is going to be 2 half cups. That's a bad example because it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm not going to penalize you for that. I may correct you in the comments. Hey, wouldn't it be easier to see 1 cup? This is going to take all of our math to now back to the very first math assignment where I had you find just whatever kitchen conversion chart you thought looked really cool, because you're going to get you're going to have a recipe that is blah 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 teaspoons or blah 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 grams. The main thing when we get to that point, either this week or next week, the main thing to remember is keep your unit of measure, keep it the same. And what I mean by that is keep weight to weight, keep volume to volume. Don't change a 4 cups of milk. Don't convert 16 cups of water to, I think it's 8.02 pounds, which is the weight of 1 gallon of water. Do you see what I'm saying? If it's a volume measure, keep it a volume measure.
Also, gram to gram.
Well, gram
Liter to liter.
to kilo, or gram, if it's easier for you to convert that to pounds, gram is weight, pounds is weight. You can do that conversion. Just keep it weight. Don't change. So in the baking world, Jennifer can attest to this. In the baking and pastry world, almost all of your good professional recipes are all written in weight.
Thank goodness.
Well, that's consistent.
Yes, and it's measurable.
A pound of flour is always a pound of flour.
Okay,
Whether it's sifted or it's just scooped out, it doesn't matter. A pound of flour is a pound of flour. A cup of flour is not going to be the same thing every time you measure a cup of flour.
Well, and
Ponder that
Chef,
for a minute. Go ahead,
Chef-
Jennifer. Yes.
I was going to ask you, so when you say don't change the, measurement from weight to, what is?
Yeah, don't go from weight to volume.
Yes,
Go-
volume. Yes, thank you. Is that only when we're converting a recipe? Like, is that only for the purposes of converting a recipe?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So
Yeah.
my question is when so like at the Alotian, they also, all of their recipes are done, in larger serving sizes, and they're all done by volume. By weight. And so it makes it really easy because you just scale it out. There's no teaspoons, there's no, it's all, 500 grams or, et cetera, et cetera. So it makes it easy to then multiply. Okay, I'm going to do 2 of this recipe because then it's just a little bit of math. It's not 16 tablespoons to. So I was going to ask you if in this conversion process, if we were going to then change those to larger portions like cups or whatever.
Yes. And that's the last step. That's the last.
And so if
in our
you own a
process.
restaurant, I guess that would be the goal.
It is, and that's why we're going through this, because if your recipe conversion factor is 4.87, you overproduce, which costs you money. You're spending money. You overproduce if you just say to yourself, 5 is an easier factor to use in my math, so I'm just going to use 5. If your recipe conversion factor is 2.20, well, if I just double it, that's close enough. Okay. When you own your restaurants, yes, by all means, you're going to do whatever you want to do. But what I want you to learn, what I want you to take away is it's good enough is not good enough. If we take away 2 things from food production 1, consistency when we cut, and precision in everything that we do. In the culinary world, we get lazy, and it's real easy for us to get lazy, because if I'm going to marinate some flank steak to break down some of the tougher connective tissue that I may not trim off before I grill it, and if I braise it or whatever I do to it, that marinade is it's the same marinate night after night after night. If I put in this much salt, and I put in some, and it's about the same. We're not dealing with the fine chemistry that you deal with in baking and pastry. But now listen to Chef. Chef is wise. Chef has owned 2 businesses. Business was a dismal failure. It actually was a great success in the last month and a half of the life of the restaurant. It was enough, but it was too little too late. And the hole I had dug was already too big and too deep, and there was no way out of that hole. And one of the things that contributed to the demise of that restaurant was, oh, it's good enough. I'm going to forecast, just guess off the top of my head. I think we need to prep 24 ribeyes and 16 fillets for tonight's dinner. Well, it's a Tuesday night in the middle of the summer in St. George, Utah, which is about 120, 130 miles east of Las Vegas in the middle of the desert. And people pass through there on vacation, but you know, it's hot and it's in the summer and not too many people stop there. And on a Tuesday night, I had no history at all, but I was hungry and I'm going to have a steak or two. So I'd ask the kitchen, you want a steak? You want a steak? Because what's one steak? What's one steak? That's practice. If you're lazy with one steak, if you're lazy with one egg, if you're lazy with the teaspoon of salt, you have started a practice and you are lazy with everything. And you might as well, I'll give you my bank account. Just start sending me the money that you're blowing, and you're going to be closed in 6 or 8 months.
Hey, Chef.
If we learn, just a second, if we learn to
Okay.
forecast, which will come in restaurant industry,
Okay, good.
if we learn to forecast, make a mathematical, educated guess, an account, a restaurant, a food service operation the size of UCA, feeding 13,000 students, feeding about 6,000 faculty and staff, just under 20,000 people altogether, 2 times in the 7.5, 8.5 years that I was there, 2 times on 2 occasions in 2 meals, I hit the forecast exactly on the money. The number of people that came in that ate at this place and ate at that place. And that's the goal. That's what you would want. It's virtually impossible to hit it exactly right every single time. But the point is, you're not going through this restaurant existence willy-nilly. You're not just making a gut guess. Well, I think it's going to be busy. We got good weather outside and it's 85 degrees and it's a Monday night and everybody's going to be out on a date. So we've never served anything before. It's our first day of being open, but I think we ought to have 172 ribeyes and let's kill 200 cows and put out 1,400 fillets because we're going to be known for fillets. That's a pretty dumb way of doing business, way of doing business, because there's just a better way of doing business. It starts with how we scale the recipes, and that's what you're learning now. I cut you off a little bit, Jennifer.
Now, I wanted to ask, because one thing that I've been surprised about learning since starting this program is the percentage of restaurants that close within a year from opening. And so I'm curious, is this one of those top reasons that they close in a year?
I've done a little bit of consulting, and in my experience, I'm going to tell you this is the number one reason.
Okay.
This is the number one reason. This is the number one reason. You open a restaurant, you're going to put it in a certain neighborhood, and what's the price of your burger? Well, you're going to go get the menu off the McDonald's, and you're going to get the menu off the Burger King, and you're going to get the thing off the Wendy's, but you don't have that kind of burger, and you're not that kind of restaurant. But that's what's in your mind. I'm going to compete with McDonald's, so I've got to sell a burger. Their burger is $2.25 or whatever it is. So you're going to sell it for $1.95. And that's how you price your menu. You're closed in 4 months. It is very labor intensive to get a restaurant started. And part of that labor is every single recipe, every sauce, every dressing, every single recipe that you produce in the restaurant, you need to have a recipe, written recipe for consistency, for standardization. That recipe needs to be costed. You need to know exactly what it costs to produce that recipe down to the individual serving. You need to know what it costs you to make a gallon of Caesar dressing if you're going to make it from scratch in your restaurant. And you need to break it down to the individual serving, because also in restaurant industry, you're going to learn how to take that per serving cost of Caesar dressing and apply an appropriate price that you will charge your customers. If you go through all of those steps with every single recipe, you've jumped the biggest hurdle. Beyond that, the next biggest hurdle is marketing, location.
I was going to ask, so that's good to know.
It's this math. It's scaling recipes. It's costing the recipes. If you're buying your product from Sysco, you sit down with your Sysco rep and how much you're going to be charging me for eggs, how much you're going to charge me for flour, how much you're going to charge me ... If you're going to sell, if you're going to work the system, then you got to get all those prices from Sysco and from Benny Keith, from Nicholas Foods, and from PFG, and from whomever that you're going to buy from. You've got to sit down with all of those people and get all the prices. And, some places are going to give you a deal on meat, but they may charge you a little bit more on paper goods. Restaurant pricing is a balance game. There's a lot more to that, and I've given you in maybe 10 minutes kind of the overview of what restaurant industry will be. You'll learn about placing loss leaders on your menu, stuff that you'll almost give away, you'll sell at a loss to keep attracting people and keep people coming in. You'll learn tricks like you want to sell a Coke, that's great, fill the glass with ice. All the way, fill the glass with ice. And you have your servers sell a cherry Coke or a vanilla Coke that gets just a little drip, just a little squeeze of some syrup. Well, you can charge double for that Coke by making it a cherry Coke. You've got to think little tricks like that as well to make your restaurant work. Anyway, that might have been more than you wanted to know about the kitchen math and the stuff.
No, that was so good.
What else?
I
Oh,
would
that
be
was
an
good.
egg waster had I not learned this.
Well, don't waste eggs.
I know.
Jill, you had a question?
Oh, no, I was going to say, because you said upcoming, but I think we already did, even though it was labeled week 7. We did the other week, one of the recipes where we had to kind of convert it.
Okay.
Did y'all do that?
Yeah, whatever date, I just clicked and did whatever's there. I wasn't even looking at the date.
Yeah,
I
it
just
was
did
a
it.
beef mushroom thing. The beef tenderloin tips and mushrooms a la.
Okay.
It says.
So
week
let me
7.
tell you how I've been grading those. Maybe I can tell you if we're done with the kitchen math and it's all behind us, and I'll tell you my secret. My main issue is, did you get the recipe conversion factor right? And especially you three, now y'all don't ruin it. Let me keep y'all way up here on this pedestal. Don't ruin it for yourself. But if y'all got the recipe conversion factor right, I actually just picked 5 or 6 other menu items at random. And was that right? I'm not a math teacher. In fact, all the stuff I do around kitchen math, more my kids than my wife, I think. My kids think it's funny that I get into kitchen math. I get into kitchen calculations and professional restaurant math and conversions and all of this. Well, I didn't fail 4 times. I failed college algebra 1 at UCA in my undergrad world twice. And I got D's in college algebra 1 twice. My GPA tanked because of me and math. Scale a recipe, I can do it blindfolded. Cost a recipe, I can do that blindfolded. But 1 + 1 divided by X equals WY squared. That's kryptonite to Superman, I guess. Just keep that stuff to yourself. I don't care.
I'm the same way. I don't understand why alphabets are in with numbers if it's math.
No.
I mean, if it's math, it needs to be numbers. It don't need to be no alphabets in there.
I don't like alphabet soup, and I don't like alphabet math.
Right, me either.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Oh, thank you.
So my other question would be, you probably saw in my video, my diced onion video, I was struggling a little bit. How do you get the onion to stay together? Like it's like once I do the horizontal cuts and then turn it, like it's falling apart and I'm trying to squeeze it to keep it from falling. I'm
So
so
I'm gonna
frustrated. I didn't
show
know if you
you-
had a trick.
No, I'm gonna dice an onion or half an onion. I'm gonna oblique a carrot.
And I goobered
Okay.
that. I'm so mad at myself because I did it so good and I had it all the right size and I goobered it.
Well, goobers happen, and that's all right. I hope you see. I hope you see in the notes that I give you. I certainly understand and respect the fact that professionally, or at a professional level, you've held a knife in your hand now for even the first 2 weeks. We didn't cut yet, so we're week 7 right now. You've held a knife for 5 weeks. I've held a knife for 30 years. It's not going to be exactly the same. Some chefs will grade you on an oblique is an oblique is an oblique, and you did it right or you did it wrong. And I feel like if I held you to that kind of professional standard, the best you're going to get is probably a D. Well, that's shameful. This is not a competition class, so I'm never going to evaluate anybody against anybody else. There's no curves, there's no bells, there's no none of that. I've done this long enough that I do have an expectation that you should be able to hold the knife a certain way. Your method, your technique should be a certain way. If you notice the grades, the comments that I left today, especially for your knife skills test, were all about method and technique. Your method is right. Your technique is right. Your method is right. If that's right, all the rest will come in time as you practice and practice and practice. Food production 1 is more about getting the knife technique down. And I'm going to harp on consistent cuts. Consistency in our cutting means very impressive plate presentation, and it means everything will cook evenly in the pan. You don't want little teeny bits of onion that are going to burn while you cook to the majority of the onion in the pan, and you have 1 or 2 big chunks that are going to be still raw or have a crunch to them when someone bites into that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So an onion, for example, is an unusual shape. It's layered. It's not going to be like the little dice, the little brunoise or fine brunoise. And I'm not after exactly the same shape, but I'm after relatively the same size. Okay. So Sorry, I got some demi-gloss reducing because I like French dips. And so tomorrow is National French Fry Day, and tonight for dinner is going to be French dip and French fries because my wife and I are going to France for dinner. French dip, French fries. Get it?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll be here all night. You just money. Okay. I'm going to move my camera down to the board, and where do you want to start? Let's start with, well, you can hear me regardless. Oh, I can't see. All right. You'll see that pretty well.
Yes.
My board, knife, and I'll try to do, I might be at odd angles. I'm going to try to do this in a way so that you can see pretty well. I'm going to take the three of you out of the picture, by the way, because I think I can do.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So how's that? You can see
Yeah.
that a little better now?
Yeah.
Well, and Chef, while you're doing this, will you do some like kind of to the side so we can see the knife going this way? Oh, you probably can't see me, but
How do you want to see it? You want to see it like this? Like this?
well, yes, like
I'll
angled
move
enough to
around.
where,
Okay. It would be really great if I had a camera probably right over my shoulder.
Mhm.
yeah, like, yeah. Just maybe a little of both.
What, over my shoulder?
No, I just mean a little of both angles, like from the front and then to the side. Just so I can, yes, right there.
Well, my hand's in the way,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Blocking
true.
that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
but I could do that kind of. I could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, don't y'all think it's helpful when you can see the movement of the knife? What do y'all think?
Where
Yeah,
it
I
is
do.
now is fine because you'll be able to see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
right now it's fine.
This is good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, I'm gonna grip the food so I can guide the knife, and that y'all will see me move back and forth. Again, method and technique, right? I've done this for so long that sometimes I'm actually guiding my knife in some cuts with just the flat face of my index fingernail. Okay. And that's just when it's really, really narrow like this, that's how I hold. I'll start like this, but let's do an oblique. And so that you can see the angle.
Yeah.
When I'm standing, okay, my knife is at a natural 45-degree angle of me. However, I'm standing, right?
Okay.
So
You're standing sideways, like you're standing.
I'm standing a little sideways,
Mhm.
see the knife, and you can see the carrot in the camera pretty well.
Mhm.
And straight on, I am I'm exactly parallel to the cutting board, me. The fall of my arm, the fall of the knife is roughly 45 degrees. The first cut I'm going to make of the carrot is that 45-degree angle. And that first piece is going in my waste bowl. Don't mix that in the rest of your finished cuts because that is inconsistent, right?
Right.
The key here is going to be the roll of the carrot. Whether you really roll it or you pick it up and move it, you need that carrot to be 180 degrees rotated. Okay. So now my 45-degree cut, my cut end is opposite.
Mhm.
So I'm going to make a nice little, the very same angle. I'm going to make a nice little pyramid cut. There's my oblique.
Mhm.
Okay.
Can we see an up close of that tip? Okay, yeah, that looks great.
Now the key is going to be same angle every time and the same size top, same size tip. So what I'm looking at, I'm guiding the knife. There, could you see that sort of? I'm right up against my finger, okay? I'm at the right angle. I don't know if I can show this to you in a really good way, but I'm paying very close attention to that top and the space down here before I ever make the cut. Make sense?
Yes.
So that I get the same size. I get the same angles and I get the same size top.
Okay.
Jeff, I asked you about this a little bit in class. I mean,
In the
when you helped
lab.
me with, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, do you only oblique carrots?
No,
Okay, so this is just a common knife cut period.
no, it's not common either. So
Oh.
you primarily things, yeah, carrot, parsnip.
Mm.
Now you can do this cut to anything, but if you want to do this classically, you want to even peel it down to about the same size.
That's what I was going to ask.
We're not doing that. In fact, on purpose, I wanted you, and you'll see this again. I want you to oblique an entire carrot because it's more challenging to get exactly the same angles and exactly the same top when you start at the little end, the narrow end, and try to get same angle, same space on the top, all the way up to the big fat end. Make sense?
Yeah, that's what I found too, is that it was hard to be consistent, especially towards the end.
I'm having you cut carrots a lot also because carrot is fibrous. Carrot is dense. Carrot's hard to get your knife through. It
Yeah.
requires you to control your knife. Potato's easy. Carrot's not as easy. I make you work with what is a little bit harder so that now in the future, when you have to small dice a zucchini, that's piece cake. Let me do a lozenge real quick. There are a couple of principles here. You're not, just because of cameras and angles and stuff, you're not going to be able to see this very well. But I want you to know, first of all, when I'm squaring off the carrot, square is very, very important. And even though this carrot is tapered, you have to see like an imaginary line. Don't follow the taper of the carrot, which is at an angle. You're going to cut more narrow, but you're going to cut wider up here at the fat part of the carrot. Okay. I'm going to cut off one. The first cut doesn't matter as much, but once you lay it down, it will. Okay. Now, very, very important. I want my knife to make a 90-degree angle against the cutting board. It has to be straight up and down. If your knife is angled at all, the larger the thing is that you cut, the more that angle is going to be magnified, and you get a wedgie on one side or every side. And I don't mean to be an elementary school boy, but who likes a wedgie? Nobody likes a wedgie. So we need to stay away from wedgies. The way we do that is making sure the knife is straight up and down. And the way I know my knife is straight up and down if my head is looking directly over this exact part of the spine of the knife, I'm looking directly where my knuckle, my finger, and my knife come together on the spine. You following? Get an amen. Give me a thumbs up. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, if I can see the blade on this side or on this side, the knife's at an angle. Okay. If I'm standing over it and I'm looking directly over it, and all I see is the spine, and I don't see either side of the knife, my knife is 90 degrees to the cutting board. That's hurdle number one. Hurdle number two of two is straight up and down, but keeping straight edges. So I've made this first cut. I'm going to make this second cut, and I'm visualizing an imaginary line, straight line. It's like I'm looking at the core, and I'm making a straight line next to that. This is all imaginary. And I execute that cut. Now, whenever I lay the carrot or potato or whatever I'm cutting, whenever I lay that over again, the side that I'm going to cut off, that line, I disregard this side of the carrot altogether, even though that's what I'm cutting off. I want my knife, I'm visualizing straight up and down, the spine of my knife and this cut side need to be exactly parallel to each other. Make sense?
Yes.
Yes. And Chef, can I ask, these knife cut names, is this something that we should memorize?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You will know that. That's for the whole industry.
Okay. That's what I was thinking.
Anywhere in the United States, anywhere in Europe, anywhere in Canada, oblique is an oblique is an oblique. Julienne is julienne. Fine julienne, brunoise, losange, paysanne. Mostly, they're all French names. In fact, even the large dice, medium dice, small dice, there are other names for those as well. And we're not learning that culinary French. So here, now, I want to just cut off a plank. And I never told you this. I will when it comes time for the practical exam. If you have to do a paysanne or something like that, I want 1/8 of an inch thick. So kind of small, kind of tiny. Okay. Now here's the losange, just like the oblique, a 45-degree angle cut. Now, save this, you need to get that perfect diamond, the width of the cut. So after you've made this first cut, where you put the knife to make the second cut, the width of the cut needs to equal the height of the plank, the height of the carrot. So it's not just a bunch of Can you see that pretty well?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That
It's
is
good to know.
that is not a losange.
So as you're cutting, you're just looking at the width.
So I'm artistic. So I'm a creative right brain person, or is that left brain? I don't remember.
I don't either.
So if you're the analytical thinking people, you use a certain side of your brain. And if you're a creative artistic person, you use the other side of your brain. I'm the creative artistic kind. So I'll tell you what I see. Okay, can you see that pretty well? I look for an imaginary line that goes from this point to this point, and an imaginary line that goes from this point to this point, and those two lines need to intersect at 90 degrees. I use
Got it.
my imagination a lot. Okay,
So it needs to be a little bit wider than thinner.
Arkansas flag.
Okay.
So what were you
Did you see
saying
the
to
difference?
do with, what were you saying to do with that first
Yeah,
little piece?
the first one was smaller.
So that
It's
first
not
little
as
piece,
wide.
when you cut that first piece
It
off,
wasn't,
okay,
okay.
I have my 45-degree angle, but I also have the height of that plank.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
I can take the height of the
Okay,
plank. If I laid that down and then made my cut, use that as kind of my gauge, my ruler, that will help you get something a little more like the diamond.
So are
okay.
you fine
Okay.
and when we
Yeah.
record, are you fine if we lay that on top of that to do that?
For now,
Okay.
food too, I won't be.
Well, and
Uh-oh.
Jeff, for both of these cuts, how fast do you have to complete them, like in the industry?
That's going to be dependent on your chef and the restaurant that you're working in.
Okay.
So in a lot of restaurants, you're going to have to dice onions. And here's 3 50-pound boxes of onions. And I need all the onions diced in 2 hours. I'll see you in 2 hours. Start cutting. In the in-person Food One classes, in each of our knife skills tests, I set a time limit for the whole test, and each test gets a little more narrow, a little faster. You need to be faster. You need to be faster. For you in the online class, if I assign for you a picture, I don't care how long it takes you to do that. If I assign you a video, pay attention to the time limit. I always give you a time. I need these videos cut, and each one in 3 minutes. That means you have 3 minutes to execute that cut. Again, you've held a knife in your hand for 5 weeks, not 2 years. And so right now I want the technique down. I want the method good. And I want us to get better and better with the results, the finished product that we cut. Speed, urgency will develop as you go. By the time you're at Food 3, you need to have a little bit of speed and urgency going on, because you will actually be in a restaurant setting for Food 3 and Food 4. Okay.
Wow.
Let me dice an onion. So I just have a regular plain old yellow onion. Y'all have done a good job differentiating between the stem and the root. Y'all are the first class, in fact, that I haven't had to beat people up about don't cut the onion, around the equator, cut it North Pole to South Pole.
I accidentally did that 3 times last night.
Yeah, I had to Google that at the beginning.
But y'all have, you see, look, you have just validated. I may save this recording. I'll have to take you guys out of the recording, out of the video, just for dissertation purposes. In an in-person class, you get 1 onion. Go. And if it's good enough, fine. If it's not good enough, we talk about it, and I ask you to go home and practice. And you need to buy 10 pounds of onions and practice all week. And then I beat you up a little bit if I don't beat you up. But I I get a little more critical if it's apparent that you come to class the next week and you haven't practiced anything with your onion. Okay. In the online class, at the end of the day, it really costs you the same, but you have the ability to do the cut with the onion I gave you. And if you're not happy with that, you can scrap it, grab another onion, and do the cut again. Not to put anybody on the spot, but Jill, I think it was you gave me, you shot at least 2 videos of segmenting your orange, and you peeled it really well with the paring knife, but you segmented better with the chef knife.
No, I peeled it with the chef knife as well.
Was the chef knife also? Okay.
Yeah, I did. I just, I was down to my last orange and I liked the way I peeled that one, but I knew I didn't do a good job on the segment. So I had one already peeled and I was like, well, I'll shoot another one with segmenting. Yeah.
Okay, back to our onion. We're going to cut the stem off like all y'all have done. Gonna peel it. Take that outside layer like all y'all have done. And now comes, this is gonna look a lot simpler maybe than, I don't want you to work so hard. And sometimes you're working so hard, for lack of any other way of putting it, you're afraid of the knife. Okay. And this applies to all of you. So I'm not talking to just one. You're a little bit afraid of the knife, and it makes sense. You've not done this before, and you're holding the onion right here like this. And if you slip, the knife is going into your pinky or it's going into your thumb. Okay. I want you to pull the cutting board to the edge of your table and pull the onion almost to the edge of the cutting board. So you can lower your hand off of the board. So you're not working at an angle. You're not working at an angle. Okay. Let's try to be as best as possible. Let's try to be good and parallel with the cutting board. Okay. Like all of our other, if your knife has been refined, is nice and very, very sharp, you're going to let the knife do the work. Okay. And this is what you're going to do. These parallel cuts start at the heel. Okay. From the heel, just draw the knife back. Gentle pressure. Okay. I'm going to stop right here. I haven't sawed back and forth. My knife is very, very sharp. One gentle fluid motion, and I stop at about 10 to 15%. I don't cut all the way to the root. I cut about 85% of the way in. I draw the knife through just gently. I give it a little bit of curve in, and the tip, the very tip of the knife, is going to graze inside. The more you practice this, the more you'll get the feel of it, and the more you'll be able to trust the knife. Let's do one more. We're going to do 2. So again, it's very gentle. Let the sharp knife do the work. You can even tell I'm not gripping real hard. I'm letting the knife do the work. I come back about 15% remaining and let the knife do the work. And let the knife do the work. Got it?
So you just did
Okay.
3. Does it matter how many cuts that way depending on the size?
So my goal is still to do something close to a dice, which is a symmetrical 3 dimensions. This side, and this side all need to be the same. Well, we're not going to get that in an onion. There are multiple layers, and the layers are curved. The smaller onions, I go about 3. The medium-sized onions, I go 4. And the really big fat onions, a big red onion, I'll go 5. It's more or less a judgment call. Okay. Now, perpendicular to this, let me see if you can see what I'm doing. And I'll start closest to you right here. Okay. What some of you are doing is making a cut. The tip of your knife is going all the way through, just like parallel cuts. You leave this intact back here by the root. So I may start here slightly down, but I'm letting the knife do the work.
Oh,
So I want you to see right here where the knife is, even the tip. Is hard. Let me see if I can get a good angle. I've got about 20% of the onion still that I'm not cutting through.
Jeff, this has
And
been
that's okay.
my favorite concept to learn so far. This is like life-changing for me.
Dicing the onion.
Well,
when you-
to leave, I have
Leave this
diced
to
so
this.
many onions without this tip, and it's like changes everything.
This does. Now, whenever I hold the knife, whenever I hold the onion, okay, I'm applying a little bit of pressure, pinky and thumb, on the outside, on either side. Okay, that's
kinda
going
hold
to
it
keep
together.
that outside from flaring out.
gotcha.
Then you're going to get from those outsides, you're going to get big old chunks.
Mm-hmm.
I guide the knife with the same knuckle, but it's kind of turned on its side. It doesn't matter that it's turned on its side. I'm still using proper method. And my knife is gliding against there, the knuckle right there. Okay. Again, I want the knife straight up and down, and I want my slices to be about the same size as my parallel cuts and my perpendicular cuts. And so forward and down. Remember, all of our cuts forward and down, not a chop. Forward and down, boom, boom, boom. Now,
Okay.
all this is going to cook at the same rate, and I have this left over. I'm going to use the spine of my knife, scrape that out of the way, and I'll take a minute to just chop this a little finer, as close to the same size as these cuts as possible. So I'll get a few cuts, and I'm still working with the cuts that the very tip of my knife made. That goes in. This is all I have left.
It's pretty good.
And I don't chop this down any further.
Okay.
No more cutting it down. Is that a little clearer?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
So what other questions do you have? Any?
So you said you made a statement, your chops forward and down.
Yes.
I think sometimes I was going forward and back first, but you're saying, I think I'm just gonna have to practice that.
Let me do,
I'll just watch the video again. and practice.
let me move the onion out of the way off the board. And I'll just show you this again real quick.
Jillian, is that how you say it? Jillian?
Jillian, I go by Jill.
Jillian, okay.
I go by Jill.
This is my biggest hurdle as well. I'm like literally just practicing and practicing and practicing.
I do have to, yeah, I need to practice it more. Mine was just falling apart all over the place. A question while you're getting, does it help? Like, I think I noticed in one of the videos, your chopping board has like a built-in ruler.
So
I'm thinking that would be helpful.
the cutting boards at the school, I was just using the cutting board at the school. And I point that out to the students. Those videos that I make are for the in-person classes also. So you can see those videos at home and watch them over and over again. And I just, I've said I do the same thing that I do in class in person. And that's the equipment that we have. And I've got this one piece of onion that is just annoying me. Isn't that terrible? Don't you get those? There we go. I got it. I will not be beaten by an onion. So I've suggested to people before, yes, it can be helpful. If you get a very fine tip Sharpie and get one of your cutting mats or an inexpensive poly board from the Walmarts or Target or wherever you buy your kitchenware stuff, get a ruler out, a tape measure or something, and you mark on it. I would suggest 3 inches, and you mark 1 inch to 2 inch, 2 inch to 3 inch, and maybe mark a half inch in between those. And then in your last inch, you want to be sure that you indicate 3/4 of an inch, a half an inch, a 1/4 of an inch, an 1/8 of an inch, and a 1/16 of an inch. So the large dice is 3/4 of an inch cubed. The fine julienne and the fine brunoise is a 1/16 of an inch. And so that will give you that measurement. I've given you, so for our last lab, for example, we did it on a sheet of paper, each of those 5 sizes of dice on a sheet of paper, using those squares as the scale. That scale can help you, but it mostly helps me whenever you submit just a picture, depending on phones and angles and all of that, that gives me scale. So I can judge the size of your cut compared to the size of the silhouette. You don't have to put a dot on each one of those little silhouettes, each one of those squares, but I want more than 3 or 4 fine brunoise. I want more than 1 large dice.
Oh, we're not supposed to like fill the whole, all the black things
Well,
but
I
one?
did the whole thing.
Yeah,
Same.
I prefer
I
you
did
filling
except
it
on the
up.
last one.
I
did the
do
whole
prefer you
thing
filling
up.
it up. But
Yeah.
people that take the time to get their tweezers out and put their potato on each little dot.
That's what I did.
That's great.
Same.
That's fine.
I
That's great.
tried, not on that last one.
That's all right.
Can you tell we're women? Can you tell we're women?
It's all good. I don't think nobody got any negative comments, even for the brown potatoes.
Right.
It's all good. So listen, just reminder, just a quick review. Your cut is forward and down, and
Forward and down.
you just operate like a choo-choo train. In
Yes.
reverse. Cut, recover, cut, recover, cut, recover. So Jennifer, if you don't mind me telling on you, I spent a little time last week with Jennifer at the school. Our schedules just worked out, and what we found was a good way to start. Be sure that you're in the forward, probably 15% of the knife. And before you make any cut at all, make that motion forward and down. Then bring the knife back without it coming up off the board. And it's like you've started the engine. You've revved the engine. Make sense?
Yes.
When you're practicing this to get this down, okay, if you start the cut and you're already midway or near the end of the knife, you're going to end up drawing the knife to you to make the cut. And if your brain just works this way, start at the top, the front end of your knife, and do 1 or 2 passes without cutting anything, and then bring the knife in.
Okay.
When you see
So
chefs
helpful for me. So helpful.
moving really, really fast, okay, they're not pushing down, even though that's what it looks like. It looks like I'm pushing down, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you're not.
I'm not.
You're rocking.
I'm rocking. I'm just rocking it really teeny tiny
Okay.
because that is the cut, not that.
Okay.
Clear as mud?
Okay.
What else? This has been fun. Anything else from anybody?
I have questions about the work this week.
Okay,
Um,
I just finished grading last week, so what's the work this week?
No, I was just kind of looking to get an idea for this week. And so there's the cheese tasting and stuff. So will that be supplies we pick up this week?
Yes. Okay, thank you for mentioning that because I was going to bring this up. There is a document, so there are 2 documents for this week. I don't think you have another lecture thing, and we don't have cuts for this week. Just practice away. This week is about taste and taste perception. And so we're going to taste some cheese. Now, when you go to pick up your supplies, did anyone go today? It's ready. You could go tomorrow. You can go Wednesday. There are, I don't know, 8 or 9. There'll be little individual cups, and they're going to be marked what the cheese is. I believe all of those cheeses are included in, you have one document that has about 13 or so different cheeses, and it's about the cheese and where it comes from, and if it's sheep's milk or if it's goat's milk or if it's cow's milk. There's one cheese in there that's water buffalo. Jen did not have the water buffalo cheese, so you won't be having the mozzarella di bufala. That's buffalo mozzarella. You won't have that. The university is in the middle of a transition right now with some main software that it uses to align with the UA system. That has to do with finances, including what the culinary school is able to go out and purchase. And so we're a little bit limited. You got a good variety of cheese, but you only have about 8 or 9 cheeses. Now, all of those cheeses are there in that list, but you won't have all of those cheeses. The other document, I call it a tasting journal. Okay, there are 2 things that I want you to pay attention to in that tasting journal. One is the spider diagram. That's that wheel, and for each cheese, I want you to put the name of the cheese, and then on that wheel, specific to you, you're gonna taste the cheese that may be salty. Well, you're gonna judge that the saltiness to you on a scale of 0 to 5. And if it's a 0, it's 0. If it tastes earthy to you, on a scale of 0 to 5, and you put a little dot. And when you've gone all around the wheel and you put in the little dot, a lot of them will be 0. You'll be surprised how some cheeses will taste a little earthy, and some other cheeses are going to be sweet and milky, and some cheeses are going to be vile and make you vomit in your mouth. No, not really. These are all really wonderful cheeses. But the takeaway really is you taste what you taste. Next week, I'm going to ask you maybe even to show something to your camera. We may all talk about one or two cheeses, and you will see what I'm talking about. 4 of us here right now, we will all taste the same cheese, and we will have 4 different perceptions of that same cheese. And sometimes those perceptions are going to be unexplainably different. I'm going to taste salt and you're not. We are all affected by our environment from birth to where we are. What kind of food do you eat? Do you eat fatty food? Do you fry food in your house? Do you spray bathroom spray all over your house? Do you have a little Renews It off in the corner? Do you wear cologne? Do you wear cologne every day? Do you wear different kinds of cologne depending on the day and blah, blah, blah? Do you smoke? Do you drink alcohol? If you drink alcohol, do you have a little gin? Do you have tequila? Or do you have a little wine with dinner? Or do you have a beer at the end of the day? If you smoke, do you smoke cigars? Do you smoke cigarettes? Do you smoke filtered cigarettes? Do you smoke weed at the end of the day? I don't care about those things. I'm not asking, are you a soda-aholic? I'm a Diet Dr. Pepper-aholic. Are you a coffee drinker? If you're a coffee drinker, do you have a cup in the morning or do you drink coffee all day long? All of these things, in addition to genetics, there are things written on your DNA that affect your taste perception and you have no control. Just real quick, show of hands. You can just raise your hand or whatever. How many of you, when you taste cilantro, when you have, you know, that beautiful green cilantro in some salsa or on a fish taco or whatever, on some curry, how many of you taste soap? It reminds you of something that's soapy. Have you? Good. 1/3 of the planet tastes cilantro and they taste Dawn dishwashing liquid. They taste a bar of Ivory soap, and it is a dominant gene. They have no control over that. Okay. These things affect our taste perception. Why, for our class, why we do this cheese tasting is to begin 2 things. The understanding that we all taste different. And you can't be so, hell bent on making your guests have the same experience that you have, because they won't. Does that make sense?
That's true.
And the other is you are budding culinary professionals. You have to start developing a vocabulary of describing how things taste. Describe to me an orange. All of y'all segmented orange. I would assume you nibbled on the orange when you turned the camera off. Describe to me the taste of the orange. Go.
Sweet.
Sweet, juicy, sunshine.
See, I love that.
Singing.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that, Jill, because I have never gone up and licked the sun. And so sunshine tastes like. Part of this experience this week and part of playing with that little flavor wheel is going to be planting a few seeds in your mind. And maybe after this experience, you'll go to the restaurant or you'll cook something. And I hope that you try to, maybe close your eyes and describe to yourself, what am I tasting? And how do I describe this to someone that has never put this in their mouth? This week, you're going to take baby steps into this little world of describing taste.
Okay.
I've kept y'all way late, but these have been great questions. What else? Anything else that's really pressing?
This was fun. I do have one question. on the onion, when you peel that outer layer, is it just one layer with the,
Yeah,
you know,
just the papery layer, just, this is what I peeled. So the actual skin,
yeah, skin.
and then usually, depending on the maturity of the onion, that first layer is kind of a cross between the skin and the onion.
Right.
Mhm.
Peel that.
But-
That doesn't
But
feel good in your mouth.
sometimes I feel like the next one is the same.
It's not.
Okay,
Try to keep as much onion intact as possible.
okay.
That goes back to the first discussion that we were having about pennies and pennies and pennies and pennies.
Right, saving everything.
Yeah, well, you know,
Well, using
in
everything.
2.5 cases of onion, if you're peeling one extra layer of each onion,
You
you
losing an onion.
peeled about 10% of
Yeah.
everything that you cut.
Yeah,
Start cutting into the money.
yeah.
So really quick on the homework too, it says, one of the things is gonna be to practice the 5 dice cuts. When it says 5 dice cuts, are they just different sizes?
The same ones that you just submitted. So
Okay,
Jill,
Oh,
the
okay.
fine brunoise that didn't all make it onto each, those are the 5. Large dice,
Okay.
medium dice, small dice, brunoise, fine brunoise.
okay.
It may be helpful to just print another copy of that same lab sheet just for your practice. You don't have to submit that again. But during the week, really, seriously, if you want me to review what you're doing, cut some stuff, shoot a picture of it, and just send that as an attachment in an email. Or Stan, you're great about texting me right on the spot.
Mhm.
I hope y'all trust me. I answer
Yeah, you answer really
reasonably
quick.
soon. Sometimes I'm right
You do.
there with my phone or pretty quick, but I'll get to you in a few hours usually.
Yeah.
You can do some cuts, snap a picture, and text it to me or email it to me, and I'll give you help. I'll give you comments. I'll give you feedback. I'll give you tips or techniques that might help you individually.
Appreciate that.
Yes, thanks, Chef.
Hey, y'all have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tomorrow is National French Fry Day, and there's some restaurants that are giving out the freebies of the French fries. So look out for those and
I'll be sure and eat some French
Fries.
fries.
jack up your blood sugar and eat too many potatoes. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.